Hey you guys, what's up and welcome back to Two Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Colors 2 by Between the Buried and Me. So, we spent the entire week listening to Colors 2, and I guess I'll just go on with my thoughts. So, I had a pretty mixed week listening to this album. Started off pretty good. I was like, okay, I'm digging this. It's got some cool elements to it. It's very funky. It's got some, a lot of elements to it that are kind of unique and, kind of just threw everything at the wall and like some stuff sticking, this and that. And I'm enjoying it for the most part. As background music, I found though that anytime I really tried to like pay attention to what I was listening to and do that whole focus thing, which we talk about a lot on this channel, I was getting lost very easily. Like, it just, I'm gonna sound like a broken record because this is like my whole prog thing, where I don't understand why a song has to be 8 or 12 minutes long when it could just be 4 minutes and 4 minutes and 4 minutes. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Especially when you have songs, and there's a lot of this on this album, where songs just bleed into the next track. There's no break. It's just one continuous track. It
there is no
perfectly.
problem with that.
There's no problem with it. I keep doing this. I don't know why.
In fact, I think it's a fantastic thing, and it's a hallmark for this band to do that.
That's all fine. I'm not saying it's a problem, but I don't. The songs are so sectioned, and this is prog in general, but this is a prog band, prog album. I feel like it should be 10 small songs instead of like 4 long songs. I'm just using arbitrary numbers here, but I don't understand why a song has to have so many different sections to it that just don't relate to each other. They kind of go into each other somehow or in some way. It just feels so incoherent to me.
I completely
I know
disagree.
you do. I know you do. And that's, I know you do. And I find that weird. Go ahead.
Well, you want me to tell you why I disagree, or do you have more to say?
I know why. We've had this discussion many times, but go ahead. Tell the viewers.
Well, I'll say this about things flowing into each other. It makes this album feel like one big package. It makes it feel like one large experience, almost like it's one giant song on its own. However, I do feel with, especially this album, that there are a lot of specific moments you can pick out from each song that feel unique and original. It doesn't feel like every song is kind of repetitive. Especially the more you get towards the second half, you start to pick out even more stuff. For example, what did I have? The riff from Futures Behind Us. Prehistory has this like jazzy section, which was sick. Revolution in Limbo has the Disney sounding thing in that second half. The punk sound overall from Fix the Error. The surf blues that happens in Human as Hell. Like, there's so many unique and cool moments in all these songs that you can pick out, but at the same time they all work together as one giant coherent package.
Let me say something about that. Okay, so everything you said correct. I agree. I find that there's a certain section of people, like metalheads, a certain group of metalheads, that really gravitate towards stuff that is unique, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they like it just because it doesn't sound like anything else. So like if you're listening to a song or an album and something comes on that's totally out of the blue and nothing you ever heard before, there's people that go, wow, this is awesome, I've never heard anything like this before. And that's fine. I don't have that feeling. For me, it still has to have a certain type of vibe and feeling for me to actually enjoy it. So things like that Disney section we're talking about in Revolution and Limbo, when it first came on, I was like, okay, this is different. What is this? I know it kind of sounds like this and that, whatever. It got to the point where that was aggravating me so much, I was just skipping it as soon as that part came on. I just skipped the whole song. I know you're disappointed, but it's like, I don't want to hear that. I'm listening to metal. I don't want to hear Disney type of stuff or mariachi music or this or that or whatever. It's like they every idea they had, they rolled it up to a ball, threw it at the fan, and then it just splattered everywhere and every idea made it onto the album. It's the same problem I have with Devin Townsend. Amazing artist, very, very talented, a lot of technical stuff going on, but you're not gonna, it's like you're trying to please every single person with a little bit of something everybody will like. I'm not for that. I don't know. That doesn't appeal to me, so I have trouble with it.
With Revolution in Limbo, that's not really my favorite song. However, I do like that second half a lot, actually.
Prehistory has another part like that where it came on, and I for the first half of the week I was like, okay, whatever. I'm trying to get into this. I'm trying to get the appeal here. Like, what kind of vibe were they trying to portray here? And then I got to where I was like, I'm not liking this. Like, I'm trying really hard, but this is not for me. So, bam, skip.
Well, I guess I'm going to talk about some songs, I guess. One big one I want to mention is how Never Seen Future Shock grew a lot on me. And I said in the first impressions that I was kind of just whatever on that song because it just didn't really, it just felt like a typical BT band song. It didn't feel like anything new or anything super interesting. But the more I listened to it, the 7/8 at the start, really liked that. The section with the flutes, that was awesome.
I like the flute, yeah.
The electric drum sound that happens there is really cool. Every melodic section was great. The second half of the song and the jam that happens at the 9-minute 30-second mark it feels so great. Like, the more I hear that song, the more I realize, wow, this song's actually amazing.
Yeah.
And what I kind of find with this album is once you really get there to Fix the Air and to Never Seen Future Shock, it just gets better and better. And I find the second half is a lot more melodically driven, and they're just like hitting it out of the park with like every track. And I find once you get to Sfumato, that's how you pronounce it. I googled it, and I googled what it means too. It's an actual word.
Oh.
It means it is the technique of allowing tones and colors to shade gradually into one another, producing softened outlines or hazy forms, which is pretty fitting for this being called Colors 2. So it makes sense.
Cool. Interesting.
Anyway, by the time you get to that part of the album, you really feel a lot of the build-up in Sfumato for everything to just explode in Human as Hell. Because I did, at some points of this album, okay, I want to listen to Human as Hell, I'd start with Sfumato, and it was great, but I found when I was listening to the album the whole way through, you go through the whole journey to get to that point. It's even better that way. So I liked that a lot. I really loved Bad Habits.
I was about to ask you, Bad Habits.
Bad Habits is sick. That one is a great one. It's one of those tracks where overall it just feels great to listen to. And I kept finding that happening with a lot of the tracks on this album. Monochrome? What do you think of Monochrome? Was the first track.
It didn't sit well with me. Again, I hate being the negative guy. Negative guy, but I try my hardest to like find stuff I really like, but I gotta be honest, I didn't like it. What am I supposed to say? So when I'm listening to Monochrome, I'm like, okay, this is the opener. You gotta give it a little bit of forgiveness just for that, because sometimes opening tracks are a little bit softer. They lead into the meat and potatoes of the music, right? I'm not saying it's bad, but do I ever want to put it on and listen to it? No. Is it going to go on any playlist? No. It reminded me of Ghost in many ways, but it almost feels like a deceiving track because the rest of the album doesn't sound like this. So if you were getting into this band for the first time and you listen to Monochrome, I feel like you'd be kind of thrown off a bit off the first track.
I completely disagree. That first chunk, the soft, sad part, is just like the first track from Great Misdirect. It had the same kind of feeling. And that's an album we did review on this channel.
If you listen to this album, you haven't heard anything else, if you're a brand new person to this band and you listen to this album, you hear the first track, and then the rest of the album would play, it doesn't sound anything like that first track sounds.
It kind of does. Listen to the second half of Monochrome. It breaks down and gets all heavy, which you see so much in the rest of the album. I think you might be focusing on just the first half sounding like what it does.
That was enough.
Sad
that was enough
stuff
for me to make my opinion.
And I really liked that part, by the way. The melody is amazing in that song, and I really liked the 80s synth sound on top of it too. That was just such a nice touch. And you see the 80s synth stuff like sprinkled in this album. It's not used too much, but every time it comes up, I really enjoy it.
That's one thing I'll actually say as a positive thing is you can definitely hear that there's like Decade influence. I feel like there's definitely 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s influence all just intertwined into this, which actually goes back to my first point as well, where they kind of just feels like they just took every idea and threw it all into one. But that's an idea I think is a good idea because it doesn't really make everything, to me, sound separate. It makes it, I don't know, it kind of gives it, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It makes it seem like there's some growth involved. It's like, I don't know. There's a word in my head I'm thinking of, but I can't think of what it is.
Speaking of growth, one thing I really liked about this album is how it feels like Like, the name Colors 2 works really well because it feels like an expansion on the sound of the original Colors album. It doesn't feel like they just rehashed that album at all. There are references to it, of course, but it feels like you took that album's sound and developed it into something new, something different, just like more colors, but just more stuff going on, you know? So I feel like it makes perfect sense why they would name this album the way they did. And yeah, it makes perfect sense, and I really like that it's a true expansion on the sound that Colors had.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to sit here and like just crap all over them. There was stuff I liked about it. So Bad Habits, which we talked about a little bit, was a highlight track for me. Same with Human as Hell. Both these tracks have parts where, you know, I'm listening to it and those parts come on and I'm like, oh yeah, I dig this. And oddly enough for me, it was actually the clean singing parts that I was gravitating towards the most. But again, especially with Human as Hell, which is the longest song on the album, these parts are coming on, I'm like, oh yes, I like this. But whenever I put the song on and like try to do the focus listen and try to like the whole song, there's just parts that I like and parts that I just care nothing for. So I wish that each song was either more consistent with how each song sounded or just shorter so I can listen to a song I like and get rid of all the stuff I don't like.
You know, I kind of feel like your idea of, you know, splitting these longer stuff into shorter stuff is kind of almost there on the album if you look at The Future Is Behind Us into Turbulent, because I feel like both of those songs kind of sound really similar. It feels like Turbulent is just another part of The Future Is Behind Us, which is why Turbulent is kind of one of my lower rated tracks, like in my head, you know, after listening, just because that song doesn't feel like it has as much as everything else does, right? But in that case, it is technically kind of that, you know, you could probably put them both into one track, really.
I think that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So I don't know the lengths of those songs, but Future Is Behind Us, let's say it's 8 minutes and the other one's 8 minutes. Instead of having 2 8-minute songs, they could have done a 16-minute song, but they didn't.
I don't think either of those are 8 minutes. I think they're both.
I'm just throwing numbers out. I don't know what they are, but I'm just throwing numbers out. They didn't do it that time, though. But how come for Human as Hell, they made a song 15 minutes long, when they could have made 2 songs at 7 minutes? I mean, or 3 songs at 5 minutes.
Thematically, it makes sense because it is referencing White Walls, the last track of the original Colors.
Yeah, sure, do it, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But then you get songs like track number 5, which is Never Seen / Future Shock, that literally has 2 titles. It's 2 songs in 1 track. So, I mean, I just don't, it's something that I've struggled with prog for years. I don't get it. I've tried to understand the appeal of this, even doing this channel. Like, we've covered a lot of prog on this channel, and it's like, okay, we're doing a prog album, I gotta get into this now. I gotta figure out what the appeal is with having a song that sounds like 4 songs. I don't get it. I struggle so hard with it. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one. I have no idea.
Well, anyway, I think we should perhaps rate this album. It's gonna get a toe tag from me. I think this is a great album. It flows perfectly. It is such a great expansion on the sound that Colors had. Like, it's totally deserving of the title Colors 2. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it this week. I think there's a lot of content in it, as is for this band, but there's a lot to pick out, and just great album.
Yeah, you know what? The album does flow, I'll give it that, but I feel like it flows all over the place. I feel like there's just a lot of ideas, but they're not necessarily good ideas. The musicianship is pretty good. I'll say one more thing about something that annoyed the friggin' hell out of me, and it's the cowbell in Fix the Error, because they have all these drum features where they do all drum solos, and they have, basically it's a click track with a cowbell. Oh man, it drove me nuts. Halfway through the week, I was skipping that as well. I just couldn't stand it. They should have taken that out. Anyways, I'm giving it a 4. I have trouble really justifying anything higher than that. I didn't have that great of a time listening to it, especially when I put any focus on it. Couple small highlights here and there, but I feel like a lot of this, what this band is doing, is wasted potential. But that's coming from a guy that's not a huge prog fan, so my opinion probably doesn't matter very much right here, right now.
Well, 4 from Bile and a toe tag from me. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for you today. Remember to like this video, to like, comment, tell us in the comments below, do you agree with me or do you agree with him? We always like to know what you guys have to say. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
I'm Bile Self.
We'll see you guys later.